I'm Shoshana Page. I'm the Mayor's Senior Policy Advisor and Communication Strategist. And today what we were supposed to talk about was advancing democracy for historically marginalized communities and engaging policymakers. So we have some of the most dynamic policymakers in the city here on the stage today. And I just want to thank the mayor, obviously, for an amazing conference, Dr. Brown for putting all of this together. But we're going to have a little bit of fun and answer some of your questions. And the mayor said the other day, we were at a conference, he stated that the policies and systems were not created, obviously, for us, right? So in terms of his leadership, what he had to do was either leverage resources and dollars to create sort of these equitable solutions, or he had to totally dismantle the system and create a new one. So I'm gonna leave that right there, introduce, who needs no introduction, introduce our amazing panelists, and I'm going to, let's start to talk about how we're advancing democracy. And like we could take it down to its most simple term, which is passion, purpose, and obviously why we're here and why we do the things that we do. So I'm going to lean on the amazing change makers who are here today to talk about why they do the things that they do and how they are advancing democracy. So I'll shift it over to Council President, the most amazing Council President.
Well, hello, everyone. Well, everyone that's still left. I started off at 8:45 a.m. The room definitely looked different, so kudos to you all that stayed with us on this Friday late evening. So for me, I have a different perspective to being in this work in the space that I'm in currently right now. I was started out as a baby in this work, as our wonderful mayor who put this amazing event on today was my 5th grade teacher. And basically at the time taught a lot of young people what democracy was, what it meant to be civically engaged, what it meant to love ourselves, love our community, and how we could give back to that. And that stuck with me from 10 on. So it's been a long, long time, which led me up into this space. I mean, I could spend a long time talking about it, but definitely in that space of being 10 years old, you know, we learned like really what community meant, what it meant to give back to our community. And it was really my escape in that, like, you know, I was in a rough place as a youngster, but at the same time learning my community, learning more about myself while I was there, what was my purpose, kind of just tracked me into all of the work that I've done between then and even now. So definitely this is what I'm doing. I try to continue to spread that by trying to engage more young people to be involved in politics, because we're just not there, like, you know, and folks always say, oh, you know, I don't really do politics, you know, politics not my thing. And I always tell young people, well, politics are, you know, you don't do politics, but politics is doing you. That's each right. And every day. And so really, I just, whatever avenue I can be in to try to, you know, engage young people to be involved, even through our Council Member for the Day program and different things that we do at the city. You know, we just want them to be civically aware, like, you know, of what is happening. How do they get involved? How do they get involved from the place where they're at today? Like right now, how do you get involved? So that's basically describes what I've been doing, why I do it, and why I'm here today.
Thank you. And I'm going to just shout her out. If you have been to council meetings with our new council president, it's a totally different feel now with her at the helm. So I'm just really super proud, like honored, proud to be here today, to be here with you today, but also to just say what a remarkable job that you're doing as council president. And next, I'm going to allow a woman who needs no introduction, Councilwoman at Large, Roundtree. How were you advancing democracy, or how did your passion and purpose become policy?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Shoshana. Listen, it is no accident that I'm sitting by a young, beautiful, and brilliant Council President, LaMonica McIver, and then on the end, one of my community daughters, Dorian Murray. Nothing to take away from you other two panelists, but these are my sisters and my daughter, my sister and my daughter. Let me just say, Shoshana, I too, like Council President, started at a very early age. being introduced to community and community service. So I always often think that was it illegal for a 3 or 4 year old to be sitting on a desk passing out literature for the first African American mayor to be elected, Kenneth Allen Gibson, at a place on Jones Street, 34 Jones Street. It was KAG headquarters. And I don't remember doing it, but I was told by a woman named Kitty Taylor, oh, baby Louise used to be so cute passing out literature. But then I went on to serve at the Leaguers as a volunteer at 12, and then at 14 at United Community Corporation, which back then was a multi-faceted, when I tell you the multiplicity of services back in the day, and now they're growing again. But just to stay on the policy piece, I learned from working for these agencies and from parents that served in the community and created their own policy in their businesses and in government and in relationships. So it has helped me to develop into the person that as a young person, unlike LaMonica, I truly did not want to do this. I did not want to engage on this level that I am now at 10, because it was a lot of work when you're made to do it. But when you have an opportunity to help as a volunteer because you want to do it, it makes a difference. So I grew into the person that at some age decided, you know, I really like doing this. I like helping people. It's not a bad thing. But what's even more important is passing it on, as Council President said. Dorian will tell you, and her mom, Dana, that I came up with this slogan during my campaign, and that's preparation for the next generation. So the thing is, she's a young one. That's a young one sitting down there. There's a young one at the mic. And I say that because they're all younger than I am. And how we can assist in moving policy forward is to consistently share and sow into the younger generations. What we're not doing is being consistent with it. Someone was consistent with me. Someone every day had me at UCC. Someone at every, as I got older, they had me at the Leaguers. My mom kept me engaged. Even though she wasn't politically involved, she was the entrepreneur. But I had someone in my life named Kitty Taylor, which pushed and pushed and pushed. So she had Mayor Baraka, and I had an advocate for senior citizens that was pushing this little girl to just be better and to meet everybody and to see how to engage with people, not just on a political level, but on a local business level. And so it's a multifaceted areas that you become involved with. Policy is not just about one area. We're talking about education right now. When we go into schools and we speak to young people, everybody doesn't want to go to a 4-year college. Everybody doesn't want a master's or a PhD. But education is so important if you can just encourage them to get education. When you start talking about education and the disparities in our community, it can really be a big problem. But the thing is, only some of our young people only know about their disparities. They don't know about it on a broad level. So I guess I'm just going on and on. I'm trying to use up just 25 minutes. But listen, but listen, so that is what, back to the point, that is how I became engaged, working with anti-poverty agencies, having people so into me that said how important it is. And I didn't do it at a young age. I didn't do it at 12 and 15 and 18. But by the time I was 25 or 30, which at the time I thought I knew everything, is when I realized I didn't know everything, and started looking around our communities and seeing the homeless and seeing the young children that had mothers that were struggling and needed a LaMonica council president or an Dorian or a Councilwoman Roundtree or Shoshana to talk to them, to help them realize. And that's where we need to do more. We need to come together more as a community of professionals to realize it's not just about the profession that we have. It's not just about the titles that we have. It's what have we done to step outside of the position to help someone on another level.
All right, Reverend Roundtree, everybody. Thank you so much. And I like what you said, Reverend Roundtree, because it's what we do on a day-to-day basis, right? Like policy, you can, everybody thinks it's getting up here, giving a poignant speech, but it's really how we treat each other every day, right? How we pour into each other, how we are the change that we want to see in our communities, and we become that change. So I'm going to talk about and move to a change agent, someone who has assisted me with amazing policy, specifically around education, that has helped us in terms of our public safety strategy and how we deal with our youth. And that is the incredible Adorian Murray. I thank you for everything, just pouring into our office, guiding us on policy, guiding us on issues, and speaking from a voice of the youth. So I'm going to let you take it away.
Thank you. Can we just make some noise for yourselves, y'all, for real?
Yes. The ones that hung out. Thank you.
Boom, boom, boom. It's better?
Thank you for not
Ba,
leaving.
ba, ba. Yeah, thank you so much for that warm introduction, Shoshana, and just what an esteemed group of folks to be here with. And for the mayor, for Dr. Brown. Y'all could be doing a lot of other things on your Friday. We know this, right? And like we're here for this work, and that's just a reflection. I always say that for me, I was really radicalized by my mom's backseat. She was a public school teacher at 18th Avenue School for most of my childhood. That's right, special education specifically. But then when she was done at work, she also was a social worker for young people in foster care at the Youth Advocate program at Gap. And so I vividly remember like just regular school nights, being in the backseat of my mom's car, her picking up a kid who had got kicked out of their foster home late at night and helping them find another placement, or her driving up, like coming from a PTA meeting. And this one time we were leaving the PTA meeting, shots were ringing out, like on our way leaving the school, on our way home, right? And I remember being in the backseat often asking my mom, like, Mom, like, why do you do what you do? And I say that to say, how many of y'all know that your children are listening to every single thing you not only say, but what you do? And for me, my first message on what democracy was seeing a woman who was made a single parent by her daughter's father being gunned down 2 blocks from her home on his way to pay her school tuition, a man who immigrated to this country from Berbice, Guyana for the American dream and got an American nightmare. Right? And found it not robbery to not only pour into her child, but to other people's children. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what democracy is. Democracy isn't a noun, it's a verb. It looks like us taking care of our community, like folks like our council president, like our councilwoman, Reverend Roundtree, like this sister who I've known for years. I even know your son, me and him are friends, right? Not only as an educator, but as an advocate, and this brother I just got to know. This is democracy. And so for me, as someone who kind of grew up being poured into from that space, I just knew that like that work was mine too. And so when I was 19, I started a nonprofit for young women called She Wins to work with young women affected by gun violence and other forms of trauma in the city of Newark, that today has worked with over 500 girls from over 32 different schools in the city. And when I was 23, I had the privilege of, after being encouraged and asked to run by the Mayor Baraka, getting elected to the school board and being the youngest woman ever elected to that work. And in all of those roles, from She Wins to school board, I've now gotten to do like what folks like my mother and Dr. Brown's, what you've done at Central, and so many legacies of women and men have done, which is to help young people see that democracy is nothing without them. It is nothing without their voice. It's nothing without their story. It's nothing without their ideas. And so for me, democracy looks like action. It looks like giving the reins to students and giving them the space to question and problematize what democracy is and be like, look, Mr. Dorian, I know you said it's important to vote, but what are these people doing for me? And like validate them when they say that. Right, and have a real conversation with them and honor the fact that they do, and a lot of our community has distrust with the system because the system has failed them. Right. But let them know that it's through their stories, through their resilience, and through their advocacy that they can make the system work.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Adorian. So we're going to move on down the road, and I'm going to point out, I'm going to ask a poignant question. What are you most excited about working on at this moment? We know that there's a lot happening at the national level, right? That there's elections coming up that we all should probably be getting involved in. just supporting, even outside of this state, there's a lot that's happening and our nation is at risk, right? But what are you most excited about working on at this current moment? I can pick any, I would let you guys pick this time.
I'll start. So, my parent advocacy is not my day job. I actually have a day job. So I end up doing a lot of this stuff at night or at lunch, quote unquote. And so as I start to get more involved in parent advocacy, I started to see other needs in my community as well that needed a voice.
Right.
And coming to grips with my big mouth from time to time, I figured why not lend it to other areas as well. And so what I also learned was that not only are kids watching, but other public officials outside of the school district are watching too. And I was asked by the president of our town to join a committee that had just formed called the Community Police Collaborative, which is not an oversight body like Newark has, but it's a subset of that.
Right.
And so the committee attempts to, influence police procedure, policy, and other factors involved in the relationship between the cops and the community at large in South Orange. And then that parlayed into an opportunity to be a board on the SOPAC board, South Orange Performing Arts Center. We don't compete with NJPAC, so don't worry. We're not that large, but I'm excited with those two things because it provides me the opportunity to bring our community that otherwise doesn't feel connected to the cops and the Performing Arts Center to those venues, to those areas. Because in South Orange, what people don't realize is that we recently hired a African-American police chief who has been specifically hiring officers of color from the area, Newark, Orange, South Orange, Maplewood. And that, in my opinion, will be a long-term effort to start to actually make community policing an actual thing.
Right, right.
Right? And so working with him on that, and at SOPAC, one of the downsides to the South Orange Performing Arts Center is that not all the acts that come there reflect the community.
Right.
And so myself and other Black African-American members are trying to change that dynamic as well. Mm-hmm. And so those are the two things that I'm trying to bring to the table by virtue of my position with the education piece, because I'm just kind of leveraging the goodwill I've established despite some of the negative information that comes out about our group that has actually benefited, I think, others in the community as well for those two particular projects.
I love that. And you talked about community. Ooh, round of applause for that. I love that. And you talked about community policing and the work that you're doing, but I really wanted to obviously highlight the work of the mayor and building the bridge between community and police through Brick City Peace Collective, our Office of Violence Prevention, and the work that they do. Obviously, we have two bills. I'm going to plug my policy. At the state level, we're looking to pass two critical bills, which is a police and fire residency legislation, which would require police and fire to live within the city for 5 years. We know that individuals or police officers and and our firemen and women who live in cities that they serve in, they're better community police relations. And the other is the CCRB statewide legislation. As you know, the city of Newark has a civilian complaint review board, but we really want to pass that at the state level to allow other municipalities to have that, and with subpoena power, right? That's key. So shameless plug for me, but thank you for that. So that led me to the segue that I needed to get to. But go ahead right there. Well, the mayor.
Sure. There are quite a few things that I'm working on, but I think one of the main ones that I'm really proud of now is the work that I'm doing with Kalina and Kevin on the mayor's guaranteed income program. And if we could circle back to the issue of democracy, democracy for me is access. And so that program is allowing more residents and more people to have access to the quality of life that they deserve, but for whatever reason they have not been able to really fully attain. So that's very, very important. And even in working with that program, we make sure that we at least for Spanish, we have our materials translated. When we do programs, we make sure that we have an interpreter. We even have, we call them pilot support specialists, and we have 2 that are dedicated to Spanish-speaking residents because they also have questions, and it's a great program. I'm very grateful for the mayor for leading that, but if the people who need it can't access it because they don't understand what's going on, then what benefit will it be? So I just wanted to circle back around democracy and around that.
That's right. Shout out to Newark's guaranteed basic income person in the room, Kevin Callahan. Thank you for all the work that you do to move that initiative forward. And the mayor's a part of a network of mayors who are working on ensuring that all residents have access to funding. We know it works, right? More people need more money in their hands to do with the things that they need to do for them and their families. So if you haven't already, like I know that there's different things that people can sign up to. So please do that so we can ensure that everybody has the funds that they need to live full lives. Anybody else want to take that question?
So the question was, what are we working on that we're the most excited about? Well, everything that everyone is talking about, from the policing to the guaranteed income, all of those things I was excited about working with to be able to share all of that information with an organization or a group that I was assigned to 8 years ago, which is the faith-based community. So I was excited. I was excited about working on sharing the information, making sure it got out to the people, Kalima. I was excited about all of that. And then God had this plan that I didn't know nothing about for me to be able to sit by this brilliant young woman that I always talk about, Councilwoman McIver, and as an elected official. Now as an elected official, I'm excited that I'm a part of making legislation or voting on legislation that affects our children, our elders, our community, our businesses. And I wasn't elected, Dr. Brown, to vote for things that I like. I was elected to vote for what's in the best interest of the community. So if you ask me what I'm most excited about working on right now, it is being a part of a legislative body that's doing things that are in the best interest of our entire community, which involves education, which involves policing, which involves entrepreneurship, and which most importantly involves our youth.
Right. Thank you. That's a great segue to our council president.
So what are we working on that we're most excited about? Newark. Because, literally, we can sit up here all day to talk about things that we're working on. Some folks have already talked about some of the things that we've been working on, but, we are doing what we need to do here. It's some stuff is slow progress, some is fast progress. We have our up and down days, but there's so much going on. Last week, the entire municipal council, we passed a new ordinance to tackle a lot of our abandoned properties, a lot of folks who have owned property here for years and walked away. The blight, we all know that blight is a strong component to crime. It's a crime, poverty, and we needed to change that. We needed to hold people accountable. Well, last week we passed a new ordinance where we're going to be fining those owners a lot of money and making them do something with their property. It's not right that you was just sit and leave your property vacant in the city of Newark for years and decades. Some places we've been seeing vacant all of our lives. I know I have, all 30 36 years of my life seeing some of these places vacant, and that's been a problem. So, we just passed that, and we're happy about that. That was really big for us. Years of, pulling it together and going through it, of getting it done. For me, as the Central Ward Councilwoman, one of the things I always say, especially about policy, is those closest to the policy that it affects should be determining what policy is. And one of the things that we're putting out in the Central Ward is basically an opportunity for the community to get involved in policy suggestions. And sometimes it's hard to do that. Folks can't come to council meetings. They think they can't come, they have to come to council meetings to have that conversation, but they really don't. They can email, it's other ways to be able to talk with your elected officials, but we're rolling out basically, I want to say a contest, but then really it's not a contest, to get input from the community about what are some of their policy suggestions in the community. Like, what do you want to see change? What could we do better, in terms of actually having some policy in place that would directly impact them in their everyday lives. And some of it may be policy that people don't even know we have, because that's a lot of it in many cases. But that's something that we're rolling out on November 1st, which is like tomorrow, but it's Tuesday. And we're definitely excited about that. But NWK has some dynamic things going together all along. I know me and Councilman Council as well, which is always a big topic in our city about tax abatements. Folks are really sometimes they're really up high about tax abatements, sometimes really down here, but it's a hot topic altogether. And folks really don't understand why we do tax abatements, why we issue tax abatements, why are we doing it, what does it mean? Some people think it's just a tax exclusive break altogether. And it's like, no, that's not what that is. It's more like a discount versus I'm just not paying taxes. But many people I speak to each and every day, they think that means it's just like a tax break completely. Like, I'm not paying any taxes. So one of the things that we've been working on, me and Councilman Council, is working together on some legislation for community benefits, mandatory tied to tax abatements. Right now, we do have components that folks have to meet for our tax abatements, like, mandatory jobs and, meeting the IZO, which is our affordable housing, inclusionary housing zones that we have. But at the same time, there are other things that can come with that, like, rather we designate a certain percentage to nonprofits in the area, or, such and such. But this is some of the things that we're working on that we're excited about that should be coming down the pipeline before the new year. So I'll leave it at that, because I could keep going on till like 5 o'clock. We know who our mayor is, so we got a lot of things that we're working on and that we're doing. But, NWK is, going in a good place.
Absolutely. Thank you. And there are strategies in place. I love how you talked about the level of strategies that you're using to get more community engagement. We have to be intentional about reaching our community, because we can't just put, what is it that that's some entities do? They put a piece in the paper and that's community engagement. No, we have to go directly to the people. We have to be in the community. We have to take pop-up vans in to give them vaccines. We have to be really intentional about how we are bringing services, bringing resources, bringing information to our community. And with that, I'll let a Dorian take the question, and then we'll move on to questions from our audience. Okay.
So it's always, everyone who's from NWK knows that NWK is like a big, small city, right? And if you're doing work in NWK, the likelihood is that you actually have connected with the people you're doing work with in so many other life cycles of your NWK life. And so for me, my first introduction to Council President McIver was through NWK Gals, right? Through all of the work that you were doing with young women, through Councilwoman Roundtree. It's been really everything. Where have you not been, right? And so I get so many full circle moments just being up here. But on the topic of young people, right, which is kind of what I'm speaking from. One of the things that I'm really, really proud of that we're doing on the NWK Board of Education, and frankly that we can't take full ownership for, right, because the community has fought for this long before we even started our tenure on the board, which is the full implementation of the Amistad Act. Now, yes. Right, absolutely.
Yes.
I know we have a number of educators in here, and I know we even have one of our esteemed alum from NWK Public Schools, David here, who I know y'all heard from earlier. But we all know that in 2002, Congress State Senator Payne passed the Amistad Act. Right, that would mandate the teaching of African American history in all New Jersey public schools. What we do know, though, is that just because there's a strong policy or legislation does not mean that it will be implemented with the way that it needs to be. And so we luckily come from a city like Newark where people fight. And so we have been fighting and advocating to make sure that homicide is actually implemented in our schools. And I'm really proud to say that right here, right now in Newark Board of Education, we have homicide acts curriculum being taught in every single school. We have full homicide curricular units being implemented throughout our K through 5 education programs, and they're integrated units. What does that mean? Integrated meaning that it's not just English or not just social studies where young people are learning about homicide, but it's actually integrated units across all of those. Now, what we're also doing though is making sure that that same organization that's happening within the K-5 implementation of homicide is happening in the 612. And so there's a number of teachers, faculty members, researchers working together just to make sure that young people know their history and they know who they are, because when you know where you come from, you know what you can be. Right now in our country, we're dealing with waves of backlash to the progress that we've made in cities like Newark, where Black and brown students are able to learn about themselves and love themselves in the curriculum, namely through this critique of critical race theory. And so what that has kind of affirmed for a number of us in the work is that, one, we have to keep doing what we're doing, but we also have to codify the really strong practices in policy. Right? So it's not good enough to have a straight program or a great practice, but like, what does it look like when it's codified in policy? And so one of the things that I've done on the school board, I wrote a policy called an equity ad hoc committee, which is essentially for there to be a committee that's really looking closely at the issues of inequity that exist in our district. And if we're being honest, there are a lot, right? And so how do we have real conversations about what that looks like, and have the privilege of working with community members just to really make that work happen, and working to make sure it actually exists. Because the more we codify what we know works, the more we are like better to withstand the blows that come from backlash to the progress that were actually made. So centering young people, centering our stories, and really kind of building from there is something that we're really proud of. And it would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge something that David, and I know the Councilwoman McIver and a number of us on the board, really, like, from your leadership and initiative, David, are beginning to work on, is the concept of a joint commission, right? A joint commission of school board members, council people, elected officials, practitioners, parents, working together to help solve the issues that affect young people. We know that the issues that affect young people aren't just issues of education, right? It's crime, it's employment, it's all things that affect their families, affect kids. And so what does it look like for us to have a system where we're removed from our silos and like really conjoint together to do this work? So really excited to dig in on that and do some other kind of student-centered work happening within the district.
I love that.
Can I piggyback on that? Can I piggyback? Sure. So thank you for that. And so for those who weren't in the last session, my organization, Black Parents Workshop, actually sued our school district, South Orange Maplewood School District. And one of the provisions of our settlement was that the district implement the Amistad curriculum. And so that is the one component they have actually complied with. They had to get certification from the New Jersey Department of Education that it is part of the curriculum officially, and blah, blah, blah. But I did want to give credit where credit is due, and I did want to piggyback on what you just said. So all moving forward.
Thank you. You said Newark forward? What'd you say?
All moving forward.
Okay. Well, you can see why we are here, why we are Newark and proud of it, why we're moving the city forward, and with dynamic leaders such as Mayor Baraka, Dr. Brown, Council President McIver, Councilwoman at Large, School Board Member Adoria Murray. We are you to find people on the panel. We're all going to move all this forward. So we're just really excited. But does anybody have any questions from the audience? Oh, he's got one. Perfect. The man with the program, right?
So the first and foremost, the West Ward Area Board was vetoed. So it's not a law. It didn't pass, basically. I mean, it passed us, but then, the mayor has to actually sign off on all of the legislation or ordinances that come through the council. So it wasn't officially approved. I will say that, like in the Central Ward, for example, every time there's new development coming, we have like a community meeting, like individually. Like we put out a flyer. We tell that to people that come to us all the time. Like if you're developing something, where is that? Like you need to reach out to these folks who are stakeholders here, but you need to publicly announce like a community meeting so they can introduce the project at the community level so that the first place is not at the planning board meeting or the zoning board meeting. Like, I mean, that's the place for residents to definitely come out and say, we ain't gonna have that. And people do. They utilize it very well. And I mean, I always say I wish more people would utilize it, because when they come out and they're speaking volumes, it's not going. The members on that board, they're not going to pass it. I mean, I just had a couple of projects that were voted down just last week where residents came out and they were like, no, thank you. Like, we don't want this, and that's that. But in terms of like the pieces that each ward right now, it's just not uniformed as much as it probably should be in terms of the different extra layers that we have. Like, for example, developers coming to the Central Ward, they may have an initial community meeting and then before they go to a zoning or planning, but some wards may not have that. Some wards do. They do have that. But in terms of that particular piece, it wasn't passed, but the councilman still has plans to move forward with hosting meetings, because you don't need legislation to host meetings. Like, you don't need legislation to have community input. You can do all of that and, without something actually in writing. But there was just a lot of delay in terms of, is this a new charter? Is this like an extra governing body? And those are things that we have to be careful about, because here in the city of Newark, we're chartered by law that makes us exist as city council members and a mayor and everything else. And so that was just a conflict in that, but that doesn't stop what's still going to happen in terms of having community input. But, like I said, I definitely encourage, I know Jennifer, who was here, she's really big. I mean, I must get tags from like all over. I'll be like, oh, let me go to this page. Let me go to these people. I'm looking all over on social media because they have this, new big thing of trying to promote people to get to the zoning board meetings, get to the planning board meetings, so you can see what's coming to your community and be engaged in that. Folks only believe it's happening once you see a brick go up. Like, no, like, you got to be engaged, and these things are made public. When I came into office in 2018, we did a lot of work with our new deputy mayor, who's phenomenal as well in terms of getting the things to be public, posting them on the website, putting out information about when the meetings were, because that just wasn't happening. And now they're virtual too. Right. So now people don't even have to come down to City Hall to try to find parking or be bothered with that. They can stay in their home at 6 o'clock and get on the meeting and just stay on, because they long. Like, they gonna go till like midnight. Mm-hmm. It's a long meeting to be outside of your house. Like, you got to get kids ready and all of that. Now it's virtual. It's just that we have to do a better job in promoting people to be engaged in what's happening and how do they get involved in the building process. Even the meetings that we host from the Central Ward, there may be like less than 10 people. Like, they get on it, like, if it's the certain stakeholders in the different communities, they have more involvement, depending on what we're talking about and where it's at. And then people feel like, I don't have a problem with it, I'm not getting on anyway. Like, I'm good with this coming here. They don't get in it to engage. I always say, we always come out like only when there's problems, not when there's like good stuff. So when people come out and they got like a compliment, I'm like, thank you so much for coming out. Oh my God, like, you came out with a compliment, But at the same time, like, if there's no problem, they don't come out, or they just don't know about it. So it's more so just trying to be able to promote our folks in our community to get involved in the zoning and planning process and all of those community meetings.
That's right. And shout out to Mayor Baraka for Newark People's Assembly, too, who actively send out information, have meetings on any initiative and every initiative before it starts, to get that out into the community. As I stated earlier, there's some communities that I've been to prior to me being here that only had something in the paper, right? But that's not here. There's an effort. There is a deliberate and strategic effort to really reach the community and get community input, whether it's from our children, whether it's from our seniors, because every initiative impacts everyone differently. So we just want to make sure all voices are at the table. I see Reverend Roundtree. You ready? You have something?
Well, okay. Well, technically, when you start talking about the information getting out, I think I've been blessed to work for 4 administrations, but the biggest blessing has been this one.
Right.
Under Mayor Baraka. And that takes nothing away from the other 3 leaders I worked for. But when you look at someone who's homegrown, really knows the ins and outs of a community, if the people don't show up, it's not because they didn't get the information, Dr. Brown. It's out there.
Right.
It's like church meetings. When there's a problem in the church is packed. But when everything's going smooth, don't nobody show up. And sometimes it's not really a problem. It's people that want to create problems for the great things that are happening because it wasn't their idea or wasn't something that they signed off on. I believe that with Council President McIver heading the council and Mayor Baraka leading this city, when we start talking about even going back to democracy, this is what real democracy looks like. Opportunity, being able to speak out, being able to make a difference. So I'm really excited about the way information goes out. You talked about Newark People's Assembly. Mm-hmm. There's never been such a machine in the city of Newark, and I'm older. Okay, that's it.
You have a question, and then we're going to do final comments and wrap it up.
So we're here today talking about education and equity in the educational system. And so we think about education and equity, we think about what happens on a high school level, but also on the collegiate level. And so my question, and it's kind of biased, but it's to Dorian. More recently, you just hosted a free HBCU and more college tour for Newark students. And I would like for you to share what was the thoughts in your ideas around that, and why did you include so many kids? You didn't just choose one select group, but kids throughout the city. What was the idea behind you having a college tour, and how does that correlate to this whole concept of educational equity?
I'll be brief because I know there's so much richness to all of these conversations. But first of all, hi Nyla, good to see you. One of my mentees just came. And she's an incredible senior, doing really great things, artist, creative, applying to colleges, and like messaging me every couple days. Mr. Dorian, could you look over my personal statement? Mr. Dorian. So shout out to our young people who are doing it, who are crushing it every single day, and building their tribe, right? And the tribe looks like us. It looks like you. Yeah, I just think it's so important for young people just to have access to see what's possible, and for us to ease the load, right? We have already asked our parents so much. Our parents have to do so much. A lot of you are parents, and you do so much. And the pandemic just kind of revealed that even more, right? And so if there's anything that I can do as a young person, as someone who runs a nonprofit by the grace of God that gets the support to do the work that we want to do in our community, that can ease the load of our parents, of our teachers, and that can take these kids to a free college tour to see Howard, to see George Washington University, to see Bowie State, to see all these different HBCUs and PWIs as well, within and outside the state of New Jersey. Like that's what we got to do. Mm-hmm. And so it was just so beautiful. And in fact, since we've come back, there's been so many. We've already planned on doing 2 more in the spring, but we've been a number of organizations and folks like even you, Councilwoman McIver. So many people want to continue to do this because we know that our young people can't. I don't believe that our young people can't be what they can't see, because I do think that there's young people who do really incredible things all the time, and they didn't have a model for it, right? They became doctors and there wasn't a doctor in the household, right? So I don't believe that our young people can't be what they can't see, but I do think it's a lot easier when you can see it.
Right.
And so to take a bunch of black and brown girls to these college campuses where they saw black and brown girls and boys who looked like them and looked like their cousins and their fathers and their brothers going to class and being in the marching band and playing football is a gift. And my prayer is that we just continue to have the resources and capacity to do that again for more and more kids and work with incredible folks like you to do it even better.
And I just want to give you kudos for that, Dorian, because I wish somebody would have took me on a HBCU college tour when I was younger, or I probably would have been trying to hitchhike to get there, to go there. You know, I just was saying that because it was homecoming weekend. I'm like, dang, I really missed out going to an HBCU. No offense, but at the end of the day, they was having them a good time at homecoming, and I said that could have been me. But definitely that, I'm sure that meant such a lot to the young people here in the city to be able to go see something that they would have never saw without your opportunity. So definitely kudos to you for that, and whatever I can do, whatever the council can do to support another, ride or whatever, we'll, scrape our chips up and get, but whatever we need to do, please let us know.
Absolutely. And the last thing I'll say, that I'm so glad you said that. You reminded me, our tour guides, in addition to folks from admissions offices, were little black kids from Newark.
Right.
Who were students at VSU, who were students at Howard, some of which I've known and mentored since they were 9, 10, 11. Now they taller than me. I'm like, hold on, what's going on, right? They were showing us the ropes at the homecomings, right? And so Newark is ripe with brilliance everywhere.
Right.
They're in our schools and our classrooms right now. Some of them are on the corner right now, right? But our kids are brilliant everywhere, and they're not just brilliant here, they're going to all these different places. And so the more we can show our young people what's possible and what has already been done,
Right.
The greater things become.
And kudos to you. And Councilwoman McIver, I'm going to my homecoming at Delaware State University, and right after this, so you can come down with me. We'll show you a good time,
Girl,
too.
you gotta pick me up.
Okay, I'm coming to get you.
Love Del State. We went to Del State last year. They are obsessed with your schools.
Shameless plug. Say that again one more time.
Delaware State, y'all. Don't forget it. I clearly slept on that when I was applying to college.
Yeah, it's a great university, but I could go on and on, but we'll stop there, and we're gonna go down. We'll start down this way, and just any final comments on democracy, moving democracy forward, what people should be doing, strategies, tips, anything that you want to say to take us home. I'll leave it at that.
Representation alone is not liberation. So that means that no matter what, you have to speak up for yourself. Democracy is an action. It is a verb. It is not just something that happens. And so make sure you're fighting for yourself, that when you're in the room, you are in the room for everyone else that's not in it. That when you're at the table, you pulling up extra seats for everybody who didn't know the table even existed. And when that table is insufficient, build one. And when you build that new one, make sure that young people, make sure that the vulnerable, make sure that the least of these, as they say in the church, right? Whomever is most marginalized in society, know that you're not just in a room or at a table for yourself, you're there for them too. Because that's democracy. And democracy was bought and paid for by Black and brown people in this country and across the African diaspora. And so all of us have a real, an ancestral charge to do the work, and that's not work we should take lightly. So yes, represent yourself, represent your people, fight for our young people, give them space, and make sure democracy is in fact something that we live out in real time.
Right, love that.
I would just bring it back to the issue of parent involvement and meaningful parent involvement, engagement, and then empowerment. I was in very quickly, I was in a meeting at the beginning of last school year with some educational leaders, and so we were talking about getting back into buildings and getting back to normal, and this person who leads a educational organization said, I raised a question about parent involvement, something like that. And she said, oh, we're just focused on the kids and making sure they have what they need. The parents, she said something to the effect, the parents are extra. And I cringed, and because this wasn't my meeting, I had to kind of just let it go. But I cringe because you cannot properly educate our children without thinking about and incorporating their families and their parents. Children do not come into the classroom devoid of who they are, their culture, their family, everything that happens, I have a phrase, everything that happens at home comes to school. And by that I mean they're not just empty vessels. And so to do the work well for children and educating them, we have to take into account the parents, and we have to make sure that they are meaningfully engaged and involved. So that's what I want to say.
First of all, thank you for inviting me to speak today. I had a great time. I think I'm still unqualified to be up with all these professionals, but I'll try my best to close this out. So, coincidentally, several weeks ago, I was lamenting being a parent advocate. Just a rough situation. I was kind of like, is it even worth it anymore? And then someone had basically kind of shown me why it was worth it. And then they asked me the question, you know, kind of generally, how do you ever see us closing the achievement gap, right? And I say, really, to be honest, it's a lofty idea, but here's what I think. We all talk about HBCUs. My dad went to one. I didn't go to one. My daughter goes to one. And what I've seen in those environments, you can't question the effectiveness of the HBCUs. Now imagine taking that model and bringing it all the way back to kindergarten or preschool. And I say it for this reason. Every year, a person goes through an HBCU, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, they become more confident in who they are and what they can become.
Right.
No matter what comes next at a PWI graduate school, possibly. So imagine that confidence starting in kindergarten
Right.
with that kind of model. And it's not to say it's a segregated model, because HBCUs are not segregated. That's illegal.
Right. Right.
They're just majority African American or black, with the majority African American or black faculty. But the difference to me is that that ecosystem is built upon black success. So if you take that model and put it in a preschooler or a kindergartner's ecosystem, what would they be at the end of that, is my question.
Right.
So if there's anything Newark can do, let this be the incubator for that model.
Right.
And I'll be right there with you if you do it.
Welcome it, man. We're reimagining public safety. We do need to reimagine education as well, right? If COVID taught us nothing, we cannot go back to the same old way of doing things. So shout out to, I hope if someone wrote that down, we need to implement that as well. That's you're gonna be there with us, leading the charge.
Yeah, that was a good one. Thank you for that. So first of all, I just want to thank Dr. Brown, the entire team, everybody, Aaliyah, to putting this on today. This was a great start to today, especially with this new initiative. It takes a lot of work pulling everybody together, especially all of the strong-minded folks we had in the room today. But definitely looking forward to tomorrow. So hopefully you signed up for tomorrow as well. But definitely just kudos to everybody who made it possible. I think for me, you know, all the time, no matter what topic we're talking about, what's the theme, what are we doing, I always say continue to encourage engagement. Because we can do a lot of this work. We can come in here, we can map it all out together, whether we're talking about public safety, education, affordability, housing, whatever it may be. But if we don't engage or promote people to be engaged in the work that we're doing or what's going on or the resources, then really it's a waste of time, you know, and that is like the biggest barrier that I've been saying since day one of being elected. People are so uninformed, so unengaged. They don't care about being engaged sometimes. And I literally spend a lot of time saying, oh, get engaged in this, girl. They got this going on. They got this, you know about that? You know about, it's constantly 24/7 of my work.
Right.
All the time. Folks say, oh, they don't have this. Yes, they do. Like, you could just apply right here, or you can get it from right over there in that corner. Like, those are the type of conversations we have to continue to have. So continuing to engage people, to encouraging folks to be engaged is really what all of our work is. I know some of our work is a little bit more deeper, but at the same time, the main work needs to be, somebody got to be focused on the encouraging people to be engaged portion all the time, 24/7. So while all of this beautiful work is being poured in, the plan is being poured in, then you got people ready to really take advantage of what's happening and know what's happening, so that really we can change our communities, because we literally, that's the only way we're going to do it. And Shoshana made a good point talking about how we have pop-up this, we do. Like, we can be running a wonderful thing in the city of Newark, but we know it's only going to be 150% effective if we take everything we got and pull up to the complex or the building or the community we want to, you know, unleash it to for people to take advantage, because they're not just going to come to what we're doing. And that's something that we need to start, like, understanding why people are like that. Like, why do people in our communities not want to just be encouraged to be engaged on their own? Because in other communities, they are.
Right.
they're going to look for scholarships. They're searching. They're doing this. They're not, they're not having a scholarship workshop where it's coming to your community room on your, where you live at. Right. That's not happening. And so we have to start to think about why people are so disconnected and wanting to be engaged. They're more engaged in finding some shoes than what's going on in the city of Newark. Like, they're going to Google some shoes real quick, like, versus Googling what's kind of happening in Newark. And I'm not saying it's just a Newark problem. I'm sure this is all over, but I'm only talking about Newark because it's where I'm from. This is where I live. Like, and these are the folks that I speak to each and every day that I represent. So definitely continue to encourage engagement, because all of the hard work, you don't want to see it not being taken advantage of.
Right. Excellent. Excellent.
Well, I too want to thank Dr. Brown and Aaliyah for her consistency, and our moderator, and to a young lady that was sitting out there. She is Kalima with Abbott Leadership Institute. And the reason I'm saying that is because when I just spoke the word persistent and consistent, which Aaliyah was in the last couple of 48 hours, I should say, making sure that we were here. Persistency, consistency, perseverance, those are all key words in our community. As a council president and many of the other panelists have they've spoke on different programs, but if we're not consistent and persistent with making sure, we can't give up. We can't just throw it out there and say, well, you missed the ball, it goes to somewhere else, or, you run around so they didn't make it to first base, so they're out. No, we have to be persistent in our communities. I believe that most of the successes that we have as leaders in our community is because of our consistency. If we were not consistent in the work that we did, there would be no success. You cannot, She Wins is not a winning organization because she just took one group of girls and then just didn't reach out for any more. Right. She's successful because ALI is successful because of their consistency. And what happens in our communities is we do start a lot of programs. We're successful the first year, and when the success starts dropping, we're not as happy. The engagement, as Council President was talking about, falls off. And we start losing the hope that we had when we initiated the organization in the first place. So if it starts to decrease or decline, that doesn't mean we decline. Right. That means we have to continue. If I have 5 faith leaders or 50, I continue to meet every single week. I don't care who show up, because I know that when they look at the video or see a message from someone that said, I was there, they might be encouraged to come back because I'm coming back next week. Right. And that's the way we have to do with our children. Our children emulate what they see. That was stated earlier. If they see us give up, then we're setting an example for them to say, you know what, I don't have to try that hard. I can just, okay, that didn't work. Let me move on to something else. Well, that's good, but when you move on, you can't keep moving on to other things and nothing successful. Some stuff we just have to help them stay with. I tell people all the time, just stay with it. Because if it's for you, it's going to work. And if it's not for you, it's not going to take rocket science after 10 years for you to realize this ain't for you. Right. So I'm just saying, as we move forward, as Newark is moving forward, because I'm from Newark, as Council President say, we know about things. I travel the state. She travels the state. We all travel the state. We see what's going on. We hear what the news says. We know what they say about our children. We know what they say about education. But the truth of the matter is, it really falls on the community, and it starts in the home. So where these issues are in the home, the truth of the matter is, you have a parenting workshop. That is so key, that we address issues that might be going on in the home. Well, that might not be my area, or it might not be Council President's area, but the service is out there. And if it's not in the school system, then that means we have to find out where in the community is there an organization or there advocates or there individuals that are willing to put together something to say, you know what, we got to go talk to mama over here that thinks that Jerry Springer is going to help her later on in life with these babies. Because that's really what a lot of our parents need. This day and age, there is no manual in no day and age to tell you how to raise a child. There is no manual. There is no manual, and everyone has a different view on what raising children look like. LaMonica McIver, council president, and myself, two totally different backgrounds, but we both now sit on the Newark Municipal Council. What led us here? Someone sold into us some consistency, some community service, but whoever was consistent with sowing into us did not give up, and they persevered. So we have to be consistent, we have to persevere, we cannot give up, and we have to realize that no child is a loser. Every child is a winner. And that's what we have to speak into our communities. And most importantly, the child that might have been told she's a loser at home has to realize she's still not a loser. And that's all I have to say.
All right, well, let's give it up for our panel. Ooh, let's give it up for our panel today, please. This was excellent.
Give it up
Right.
to Shoshana, our
Thank
moderator.
you. Oh, thank you. It's 4:30, right? It's 4:30. We are going to close out right now, but I just want to say kudos to Mayor Baraka for having a vision for the 2022 Roadmap to Educational Equity Conference. We'll be back again here tomorrow at 8 a.m. Come sharp. Don't miss that good breakfast that we're going to have. And really, really well done first day, and what I know will be a phenomenal second day that was orchestrated by my sister, Dr. Sharni Brown. She runs our education office in the city with Miss Aaliyah, and they are doing the thing, as you can see, right? So we're just really excited. Thank you to everyone who has been here, all the panelists, all the speakers today, and we'll see you again here tomorrow. Thank you.